The morning before Christmas, my arm broke with a sound I will never forget. Sharp, dry, final, like a branch snapping in winter. My son-in-law leaned close enough that I could smell the beer on his breath and whispered, "Stay away from me. Next time it'll be worse." 3 days later, he called me like nothing had happened and asked one simple question. "Did you pay the mortgage?" I answered him with just 3 words. But before I tell you what those words were, let me say this. If you've ever trusted the wrong person because they were family, if you've ever been made to feel old, confused, or powerless in your own home, then stay with me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments. Because what happened next took everything he thought he owned, his money, his marriage, his future, and stripped away piece by piece. I read every single one. Now let me take you back. The bank statement trembled in my left hand, not from fear, but from a kind of rage I hadn't felt since my days working federal fraud cases decades earlier. It was December 24th, Christmas Eve, and the numbers on the screen did not make sense. There were 8 transfers, each one for just over $7,000, all within 2 weeks. More than $56,000 gone. Not missing, not misfiled, transferred. I sat alone at the long oak dining table in my house on Crestline View Drive, a house I bought outright more than 30 years ago, worth just over $2.5 million now, and scrolled through the transaction history again. Every transfer went to the same place, a regional credit union downtown. I didn't bank there, but I knew someone who did. My son-in-law, Marcus. Marcus and my daughter, Elaine, had been living with me for just under 2 years. Temporary, Marcus had said back then, flashing that polished salesman smile of his. Just until we get ahead. Maybe 6 months. That was nearly 2 Christmases ago. I stood slowly, my knees aching the way they do in winter, and walked toward the kitchen. Elaine was there, arranging imported cheeses on a slate board like we were hosting royalty instead of going nowhere on Christmas Eve. She looked up and frowned. "Dad, you okay? You look pale. Where's Marcus?" I asked. "In the garage," she said. "He's messing with that new bike again." Of course he was. The motorcycle had arrived 3 weeks earlier. Custom paint. Chrome everywhere. Loud enough to wake the dead. Another thing he claimed was handled. I didn't respond. I just turned and walked toward the garage. The door was open. Marcus was bent over the bike, muscles tight under a sleeveless shirt, grease on his hands, music playing too loud for the hour. 37 years old, over 6 feet, at least 70 pounds heavier than me. "Marcus," I said, "we need to talk." He didn't look up. "Busy," he muttered. "It's about my savings account." That got his attention. He straightened slowly and wiped his hands on a rag. Eyes cool, unreadable. "What about it?" I held up my phone. More than $56,000 was transferred out of my account. 8 separate transactions, all to your credit union. He stared at the screen for a moment longer than necessary, then laughed. "You serious right now? I'm asking if you know anything about it." His smile vanished. "You accusing me of stealing from you? I'm asking a question." He tossed the rag aside and crossed his arms. "After everything Elaine and I do for you, living in this big, empty house, keeping you company, helping out, you live here rent-free," I said quietly. "This is still my house." That's when his face changed. Red crept up his neck. His jaw tightened. "You know what your problem is?" he snapped. "You hate that she chose me. You've been waiting for an excuse to come between us." "I'm asking about my money." "I don't know anything about it," he said flatly, turning back to the bike. I didn't move. "If there's been a mistake," I said, "we can fix it, but I need it returned." That's when he spun around. Fast. Too fast. And that was the moment everything shifted, the moment I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. Marcus stepped toward me, closing the distance in 2 long strides. Up close, I could smell alcohol on his breath, even though it wasn't even 4 in the afternoon. His eyes weren't angry yet. They were calculating, measuring how much fear he could extract. "You want the truth?" he said quietly. "I want my money back." He exhaled sharply through his nose, almost a laugh. "You really don't remember, do you?" he said. "The paperwork you signed years ago, when Elaine got power of attorney." The words hit harder than any shove ever could. Power of attorney. I remembered the meeting clearly. Elaine was 29, newly married. My attorney had suggested it as a precaution, someone I trusted in case of emergencies. I'll never use it unless I have to, she promised. That had been nearly a decade ago. You used it, I said slowly. Marcus shrugged. We needed it. You took more than $56,000. I borrowed it, he snapped. Big difference. You bought a motorcycle. That was 12, he shot back. The rest went toward fixing problems. Your problems. He stepped even closer. That money was going to be Elaine's anyway, he said. You're sitting on a house worth millions. What's the difference? The difference, I said, is consent. Something in my tone must have set him off. He grabbed the front of my shirt and shoved me backward. My hips slammed into the workbench. Tools rattled and clattered to the floor. Don't talk down to me, he growled. I tried to step past him. Get out of my way. He blocked me. Give me my money back, I said. All of it. By New Year's. His hand tightened around my wrist. Or what? I didn't answer fast enough. He twisted. The pain was immediate and blinding. A sharp crack echoed through the garage, loud enough that I heard it even through my own scream. White heat exploded up my arm. My knees buckled. I made a sound I didn't recognize, something raw and animal, and collapsed against the bench. Marcus released me like I was suddenly diseased. Stay away from me, he said coldly. Next time will be worse. I was still trying to breathe when Elaine appeared in the doorway. What happened? She cried. He fell, Marcus said instantly. Smooth. Calm. Lost his balance. My arm was already swelling, useless at my side. I'm fine, I lied, because I could see her hesitation already forming. The way she looked between us, waiting for cues. We should call an ambulance, she said. No, Marcus said. Firm. He said he's fine. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes flicked to my arm, then back to her husband. I'm driving myself, I said. Marcus smirked. Good luck. The drive to the hospital was agony. Every bump sent lightning through my arm. I held the steering wheel with my left hand and clenched my teeth until my jaw ached. The emergency room was packed. Christmas Eve always was. After hours of waiting, a doctor finally reviewed the x-rays. Clean fracture, she said. Radius. This wasn't a simple fall. I met her eyes. I fell. She sighed and made a note. They wrapped my arm in a cast and sent me home just after 9 that night. The house looked warm when I pulled into the driveway. Christmas lights glowing. Laughter from the living room. A movie playing. I sat in the car for several minutes, my arm throbbing, and felt something settle into place. Not fear. Focus. Christmas morning came and went like a performance. Pancakes. 4 smiles. Wrapped gifts I didn't open. Marcus whistled while pouring juice. I said very little. Inside my room, I pulled out my laptop and went back to the bank records. The transfers were precise. Each one carefully kept under reporting thresholds. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. My phone buzzed. Elaine, Dad, please come out. It's Christmas. I didn't respond. Instead, I searched for elder financial abuse statutes in California. And for the first time since the garage, I smiled. 3 days later, my phone rang. Marcus. I answered. Did you pay the mortgage? He asked casually. I let the silence stretch. Then I said the only 3 words he never expected. Call my lawyer. I hung up on him without another word. The phone rang again almost immediately. I declined it. Then I blocked his number. For the first time since my arm broke, the house felt quiet. Not peaceful. Not yet, but quiet in the way a courtroom goes silent just before a verdict is read. I sat at the small desk in my bedroom, my cast resting on a pillow, and opened my laptop again. I pulled up the transaction history and studied it carefully, this time not as a victim, but as an investigator. 8 transfers. Each one staggered, just enough to avoid automatic alerts. Each one calculated. That wasn't desperation. That was planning. And planning meant intent. By noon, Marcus and Elaine were gone. I heard the garage door close, their car pulling away, probably heading to his mother's house. I wasn't invited. I didn't mind. I spent the afternoon reading statutes instead. California law didn't mince words when it came to financial exploitation of elders, misuse of power of attorney, abuse of trust, treble damages in civil court if intent could be shown. Intent was everywhere. On December 27th, I drove downtown. First stop wasn't a law firm. It was a small notary office I knew well. Helen Mercer opened the door herself. 64. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. She took one look at my cast and raised an eyebrow. "Tell me you finally punched someone who deserved it," she said. "Worse," I replied. She listened without interrupting as I laid everything out. The money, the transfers, the garage, the fracture. When I finished, she nodded once. "You need to revoke the power of attorney immediately. Do it. And you need a civil litigator who eats men like your son-in-law for breakfast." "I know." She smiled thinly. "I'll call Dana Keller." Dana Keller was brutal. Former prosecutor. Elder abuse specialty. By the time I left Helen's office, the documents were already being drafted. From there, I went straight to the police station. The officer taking my report was young, polite, careful. "Family situations can be complicated," he said. "So is fraud," I replied. "That doesn't make it legal." He took the report. Assault, theft, financial exploitation. I left with a case number and a clear sense that criminal charges might move slowly. Civil court wouldn't. When I got home, Marcus was waiting, standing in my living room like he owned it. "You blocked me," he said. "Yes. You filed something, didn't you?" "I secure my finances." "You can't do that." "I already did." He took a step forward. "You're trying to ruin us." "No," I said calmly. "I'm documenting what you did." His face twisted. "This is my house, too." "No," I corrected him. "You're a guest. One who overstayed." He stared at me, then laughed. "You think you've won something?" I met his eyes. "This hasn't even started yet." He left without another word. That night, I installed cameras. Every room, every entrance. And I slept better than I had since Christmas Eve. The email arrived 2 days later. From a private investigator Dana had recommended. Subject line, preliminary findings. The money trail was clean. Too clean. Savings account to credit union. Credit union to national bank. From there, a vehicle purchase. A casino. Cash withdrawals. Marcus hadn't just stolen my money. He'd burned it. I forwarded the email to Helen and Dana. Helen replied first. "Oh, this is going to be expensive for him." Dana replied next. "We file next week." I closed my laptop and leaned back, my arm aching dully inside the cast. Marcus thought the story ended in that garage. He thought fear would silence me. He was wrong. He confused age with weakness. And that was about to cost him everything. Dana Keller didn't waste time. She called me the morning after receiving the investigator's report. "Frank," she said, "this isn't just misuse of power of attorney. This is textbook elder financial abuse with aggravating factors." Aggravating, I repeated. Physical injury, position of trust, intentional concealment, and spending patterns that scream personal enrichment. I pictured Marcus's motorcycle gleaming in my garage. "Good," I said. "We'll file for restitution, punitive damages, medical costs, and attorney's fees," she continued. "Given the amount involved, we'll ask for north of $160,000. More than triple what he stole." Numbers mattered in court, and the law allowed it. By the end of the week, the complaint was drafted. Every page precise, every allegation backed by documents. Before it was filed, Dana had one more recommendation. "You need an eviction attorney." I assumed as much. "He lives in your home. California has tenant protections, even without a lease." "I don't want him gone quietly," I said. "I want it done correctly." She smiled. "I know the right person." That afternoon, I met with an eviction specialist named Robert Lynn. Efficient, calm, deadly in his own way. "You're the sole owner," he confirmed after reviewing the deed. "No lease. No rent paid. 30-day notice is valid. Deliver it. I'll handle service personally." The phrase personally mattered. Marcus needed to hear it from someone who wasn't me. At home, the tension thickened. Elaine barely spoke to me anymore. She moved through the house like a ghost, eyes down, voice hesitant. Marcus, on the other hand, grew louder. He slammed doors. He paced. He whispered angrily to her late at night. Once, he cornered me in the hallway. "You're enjoying this," he said. "I'm documenting," I replied. "You think courts care about old men whining?" I raised my cast. "They care about fractures." His eyes flicked away. 2 days later, The investigator sent another update. Photos attached. Marcus's new truck, purchased less than a week after my arm broke, sitting in his employer's parking lot. Dealer paperwork. His signature. Cash payment. I forwarded everything to Dana. She replied with one line. We own him. The eviction notice was delivered the following Monday. I watched from the window as Robert Lynn handed the envelope to Marcus. Marcus opened it. Read. Went pale. You can't do this, he snapped. You have until the first week of March, Robert said evenly. After that, the sheriff enforces it. Elaine stood behind him, hands over her mouth. That night, Marcus knocked on my bedroom door. We need to talk. No, I said. You're throwing your daughter out. I'm removing the man who stole from me and broke my arm. This is revenge. This is law. I held up my phone. This conversation is recorded. He backed away. The lawsuit was filed 3 days later. Marcus was served at work. He came home furious. They're suing me for more than $160,000, he shouted. Elaine looked at me, stunned. Dad, I handed her the evidence. Bank records, purchase agreements, casino receipts. Her hand shook. He said it was a loan. It wasn't. Silence filled the room. For the first time, I saw doubt crack through her loyalty. Marcus saw it too, and he panicked. Marcus's lawyer called Dana first. That told me everything I needed to know. Men who believe they're innocent don't rush to negotiate. Men who believe they're cornered do. Dana put the call on speaker so I could hear it myself. Mr. Hall is open to resolving this matter privately, the lawyer said, without litigation, by returning the stolen funds in full. Dana asked. A pause. Not immediately. How much? Dana pressed. Perhaps half, he said. Paid over time. Dana smiled and looked at me. We'll see you in court. The line went dead. Marcus didn't take the rejection well. That evening, he paced the living room like a caged animal, voice rising with every step. He's trying to destroy us, he told Elaine. This is what he's always wanted. Elaine didn't answer. She was staring at the documents I'd shown her earlier. The truck paperwork, the casino receipts, the dates. Why didn't you tell me about the truck? She asked quietly. Marcus froze. I was going to. You bought it with my father's money. It was temporary. You gambled with it. His voice hardened. Why are you taking his side? I'm asking questions, she said. That's all. I watched from the hallway, saying nothing. Truth didn't need help. It only needed space. The next morning, Dana called. Court date is set for mid-February, she said. Judge assigned is Evan Carlisle. I knew the name. Experienced. Methodical. No patience for excuses. Good, I said. In the meantime, she continued, document everything. Any threats. Any contact. He didn't make me wait long. That night, Marcus tried intimidation again. He blocked the doorway to my room. You think a judge is going to side with you? He sneered. You're old. Confused. They'll see that. I raised my phone. This is being recorded. His eyes flicked to the red light. Get out of my way, I said. He stepped back. Fear had finally found him. The investigator's next report landed 2 days later. Marcus had defaulted on several credit cards. Missed payments. A personal loan he never told Elaine about. Debt north of $25,000, all predating their marriage. I handed the report to Elaine. Her face collapsed. He said we were saving, she whispered. He was, I replied. Just not for you. That night, their arguing shook the walls. For the first time, Marcus couldn't control the story. Another settlement offer arrived the following week. $40,000. No admission of wrongdoing. Dana laughed. Decline, I said. Gladly. The eviction notice deadline loomed closer. Boxes appeared in the hallway. The house felt like it was exhaling. Marcus grew quieter. Quieter men are more dangerous than loud ones. On the morning of the hearing, I put on my suit for the first time in years. The cast was gone, but the ache remained. Dana met me outside the courthouse. Ready? She asked. I've been ready since Christmas Eve. Inside, Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. Elaine sat behind him, pale, exhausted. When the judge entered, the room went still. Dana stood, and then she began. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, in atmosphere. The kind of cold that settles in when everyone present understands that whatever happens inside those walls will change lives permanently. Dana and I took our seats at the plaintiff's table. 3 organized binders sat in front of her, color-coded, tab, prepared like instruments laid out for surgery. Marcus arrived moments later with his attorney. Navy suit, red tie, hair slicked back. The uniform of a man trying to look respectable. Elaine followed behind him, eyes red, shoulders tense. She still wouldn't look at me. Judge Evan Carlisle entered at precisely 9 o'clock. He didn't waste time. Case number CV25-0189, the clerk announced. Elder financial abuse, assault, and civil damages. Dana stood. Your Honor, we are ready. Marcus's attorney rose more slowly. Ready, Your Honor. The judge nodded once. Proceed. Dana didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She simply dismantled. First came the medical records. X-rays displayed on the screen. Doctor's notes read aloud. Fracture pattern consistent with forceful twisting, Dana said. Not a fall. Marcus shifted in his chair. Then came the bank records. 8 transfers, each just below reporting thresholds. Dates highlighted. Amounts spelled out. Dana paused. Your Honor, this pattern demonstrates intent to avoid detection. The judge leaned forward. Next came the purchase agreements. The truck, cash payment, Marcus's signature, then the casino transactions, withdrawals, receipts, timestamps. Dana didn't look at Marcus when she spoke. She didn't need to. This money was not used for shared household expenses, she said. It was used for personal enrichment. Marcus's attorney tried to object. The judge raised a hand. Sit down. I watched Marcus's face drain of color. Finally, Dana addressed the assault. She gestured toward me. Mr. Richardson, please describe what happened in the garage. I stood. The room felt smaller suddenly. He grabbed my arm, I said, twisted it until it broke. Then told me next time would be worse. Silence. Judge Carlisle looked directly at Marcus. Did you assault him? Marcus opened his mouth. No sound came out. I asked you a question, the judge said evenly. His attorney leaned toward him. Marcus swallowed. No, he said weakly. He fell. The medical evidence contradicts that, the judge replied. He looked down at his notes. Then back up. I find for the plaintiff on all counts. Elaine gasped. Marcus froze. You are ordered to pay restitution of $56,000, the judge continued, plus punitive damages totaling $110,000. Marcus's attorney started to speak. Sit down, the judge snapped. I'm issuing a permanent restraining order. You will stay no less than 100 yards from Mr. Richardson and his residence. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. The gavel came down. Court adjourned. Marcus sat there, unmoving. Elaine fled the room. Dana leaned toward me. It's over, she said. No, I replied softly. It's just begun. The sheriff arrived 2 mornings later. 10:15 a.m. Right on schedule. I watched from the front window as the tow truck backed into my driveway, its engine idling with patient indifference. Marcus's truck sat gleaming in the sunlight. The same one he bought with my money. The same one he bragged about to neighbors who thought he was doing well. The deputy knocked. Marcus answered in pajama pants and a wrinkled shirt, confusion already flickering across his face. The deputy handed him a folder. Asset seizure order. Court authorized. Marcus read it once. Twice. Then his knees actually bent. You can't take that, he said hoarsely. That's my truck. The deputy didn't raise his voice. Sir, the vehicle was purchased with misappropriated funds. It is now subject to seizure to satisfy a civil judgment. Elaine stood behind him, silent, arms wrapped around herself. The tow hook clanked. Metal on metal. Final. Marcus turned toward the house, toward my window. I didn't hide. I stood there with my coffee and watched as the truck rolled away, his future shrinking in the rearview mirror. That afternoon, Dana called. Courtesy Auto terminated him this morning, she said. Liability concerns. Of course they had. No dealership wants a salesman with a restraining order and a fraud judgment. By evening, Marcus was pacing again, shouting, blaming. They ruined everything, he told Elaine. Your father did this. Elaine didn't respond. She just stared at the empty driveway. The eviction deadline arrived quietly. Robert Lynn returned with the final notice. 30 days. No extensions. Marcus tried one last bluff. We have tenant rights. You had privileges, Robert replied. Not rights. The sheriff would return if needed. That night, Marcus knocked on my door again. Late. Voice low. You think you've won, he said. You think this makes you powerful. I held up my phone. Choose your next words carefully. He backed away without another sound. The spiral continued. Creditors called. Letters arrived. A garnishment order followed. 15% of every paycheck. When he found one, redirected. Then came the bankruptcy filing. Dana laughed when she told me. Willful injury debts aren't dischargeable, she said. He stuck with this for life. That realization broke something in him. He violated the restraining order 3 nights later. Left a voicemail. Angry. Desperate. I forwarded it to Dana and the police. They arrested him within the hour. 48 hours in holding. Enough time for Elaine to pack. She left while he was gone. Moved her things quietly. No goodbye. No note. Just absence. When Marcus returned, the apartment was empty. That was the moment he truly lost. The letter arrived on an ordinary afternoon. That was the part that unsettled me most, not the envelope itself, but the lack of ceremony. No warning knock. No dramatic weather. Just the soft, almost apologetic thud of mail slipping through the slot while the kettle cooled on the stove and the house settled into its familiar creaks. Afternoon light lay across the floor in pale rectangles, dust motes drifting lazily, unaware they were witnessing anything at all. I almost missed it. I gathered the stack without looking, carried it to the kitchen counter, and sorted by habit. Utility bill, grocery circular, bank statement. The choreography of ordinary life. Then I saw the envelope beneath them unmarked, cream-colored, heavier than the rest. No return address. No stamped flourish. Nothing announcing its importance. I knew before I touched it. Elaine's handwriting had not changed since childhood. The loops were smaller now, more disciplined, less hopeful perhaps, but the slant was unmistakable. The same careful strokes she'd used to sign permission slips, to label school folders, to leave notes on the refrigerator when she came home late and didn't want to wake me. Seeing it felt like hearing a voice from another room, familiar, intimate, and carrying something unresolved. I didn't open it. Instead, I sat on the counter beside the sink and walked away. I rinsed my mug. I dried my hands slowly, deliberately. I checked the window latch, even though I'd checked it an hour earlier. I straightened a chair that didn't need straightening. The envelope remained where I'd left it, quiet and insistent, as if it had always been there and I had only just noticed. Nearly an hour passed. I told myself I was giving it time, letting the moment settle. In truth, I was bracing. Some messages arrive, already complete. Others change shape once read, rearranging the architecture of your days. I suspected this one would not be small. There are letters that ask to be answered and letters that demand to be absorbed. This one felt like the latter. When I finally opened it, I did so carefully, as though the paper itself could bruise. The sound of the envelope tearing was louder than it should have been. A clean sound, irreversible. Inside, the words came slowly, measured, deliberate. Elaine had always written that way, never wasting language, never rushing thought. Even as a child, she'd revised birthday cards 3 times before committing ink to paper. The first line alone took my breath. She wrote that she had found things Marcus had hidden. Not a dramatic declaration. No exclamation point. Just a fact, laid bare, like a diagnosis delivered without ceremony. The kettle clicked off behind me, having long since boiled itself dry, and for a moment I couldn't remember turning it on. Statements. Overdue notices. Debts she had never known existed. She listed them not as accusations, but as inventory credit cards opened before their marriage. Personal loans disguised as business expenses, balances transferred from one account to another, accounts closed and reopened elsewhere. A shell game conducted in plain sight, relying on the assumption that no one would look too closely. More than $27,000 accumulated before they were even married. Debt he'd sworn didn't exist. Debt he'd laughed off when I'd asked. Debt he'd wrapped in charm and half-truths and the practiced confidence of a man used to being believed. As I read, memories rearranged themselves. Casual remarks Marcus had made at dinner. Jokes about accountants being overly cautious. The way he'd always insisted on handling the finances himself, framing it as generosity, as protection. Control disguised as care. I felt no triumph in recognizing it, now only a dull confirmation. She wrote about the lies. Not the obvious ones, but the structure of them, the scaffolding. The way every question had been met with an answer already prepared, the way doubt had been gently redirected, how concern had been reframed as negativity. She wrote about how tired she was, how exhausted she'd become from constantly reconciling small inconsistencies, convincing herself they didn't matter. Gaslighting was too small a word for it. This was erosion. Grain by grain, certainty had been worn away. Then came a sentence that undid me. She wrote about the garage. About the night she remembered my scream, how she had heard it then, fully heard it, and chosen not to hear it. How she had stood in the doorway of her own mind and closed it deliberately. How acknowledging it would have meant confronting the possibility that she had been wrong not just about him, but about herself. That she had chosen comfort over truth. I believed him, she wrote, and I don't know how I'll forgive myself for that. I had to stop reading. I sat down at the kitchen table, the letter trembling slightly in my hands. Forgiveness is often imagined as something bestowed, but self-forgiveness is a harsher terrain. I knew that road. I had walked it myself in quieter ways, over smaller failures, over moments when I'd seen something I didn't want to see and let it pass. There was no defense in the letter, no request, no attempt to soften the damage. Just recognition, ownership without performance. That mattered. I folded the pages slowly, aligning the edges with care, and placed them in my desk drawer beneath old tax records and warranty papers, documents of permanence and proof. Things that existed to anchor reality. I closed the drawer. I didn't respond. Not yet. Some realizations need silence to fully form. Words too quickly offered can cheapen truth. Elaine had finally stopped talking around the damage. I owed her the respect of not filling the space immediately. Life grew quieter after that. Not abruptly. Quiet rarely announces itself. It crept in the way evening does by degrees, until one day I noticed the absence of noise. The house no longer felt like it was holding its breath. My sleep deepened. The constant, low-grade vigilance that had followed me from room to room began to loosen its grip. Marcus vanished from my daily orbit completely. The restraining order ensured that. His name no longer appeared in my voicemail inbox. His silhouette no longer hovered at the edge of parking lots or grocery aisles. The tension I'd carried in my shoulders for months began to ease, not because the memory faded, but because the threat had. Safety is not the absence of fear. It is the absence of imminence. Occasionally, Dana would call with updates. She never dramatized them. Dana had long since learned that justice does not require embellishment. Another garnishment processed. Another creditor filing a claim. Another failed attempt by him to appeal something he no longer had the resources to fight. Each update was delivered in the same calm tone she might use to discuss the weather. Facts unadorned. His life, once so carefully curated, was collapsing under the weight of documentation. Paper is patient. It waits. Elaine moved into a small studio near the coast. $800 a month. Her name only on the lease. When Dana mentioned that detail, I felt something loosen in my chest. Names matter. Ownership matters. The quiet dignity of having something that cannot be taken by charm or manipulation. A door that locks because you hold the key. She found work at a design firm downtown. Modest pay, honest work, long hours, real deadlines, no shortcuts, no borrowed confidence. She told Dana she'd forgotten what it felt like to be tired for reasons that made sense. She was rebuilding, slowly. Rebuilding does not look like redemption. It looks like exhaustion. It looks like humility. It looks like standing in a grocery aisle, calculating which brand you can afford without resentment. It looks like learning the true cost of things, not just money, but attention, trust, silence. One evening, weeks after the letter, my phone rang. Elaine. I let it ring twice before answering, not as punishment, but as preparation. Some conversations deserve a steady voice. Dad, she said. Her voice was thinner than I remembered. Not weak stripped. as if unnecessary layers had been peeled away. I left him. I closed my eyes. Good. Silence stretched between us. I could hear traffic in the background, the distant surf. She was probably sitting on the edge of her bed, phone in both hands, bracing for something harsher than what I gave. I filed for divorce. That's wise. Another pause. Then, quieter. I don't expect forgiveness. I didn't interrupt, but I wanted you to know you were right. That mattered more than an apology. Not because I needed vindication, but because truth, once acknowledged, stops echoing. It settles. It becomes usable. Weeks later, she came by. She didn't announce it. Just knocked softly. No makeup. No performance. Just my daughter, standing on the threshold of the house she had once defended leaving. We sat in the living room where so much had broken. The furniture hadn't changed, but the air had. No tension. No pretending. Just the weight of what had passed between us and the space to finally name it. I don't understand how I let it happen, she said. I watched her hands as she spoke. She'd always been expressive with them. Now they were still, folded in her lap. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it, I replied. That doesn't make you weak. She looked up, staying once you saw the truth would have. Her face crumpled then, not dramatically but completely. The kind of crying that doesn't seek comfort, only release. I crossed the room and held her as I had when she was small, her forehead against my chest, my hands steady on her back. That was enough. We didn't resolve everything that night. We didn't need to. Repair is not an event, it's a pattern. Marcus tried once more to contact me. Another voicemail. Angry, blaming, accusatory, a familiar voice grasping for relevance. I didn't listen twice. I forwarded it. He was arrested again. That was the last time I heard his voice. And for the first time in a long while, the silence that followed felt earned. The house sounded different once they were gone. Not empty, just honest. No forced laughter. No slammed doors. No tension humming beneath the floorboards like a live wire. Just quiet, steady, earned quiet. I stood in my workshop one morning not long after Elaine moved out for good, turning a small brass watch over in my hand. An old one. 1940s. Mechanical. Simple. The kind of thing that worked only if every piece did its job and nothing was allowed to grind against the rest. I had always liked restoring things that were broken. You couldn't rush it. You couldn't bully it. You couldn't lie to the mechanism and expect it to work anyway. Marcus had tried all three. The court filings kept coming for a while. Notices of wage garnishment. Confirmations of asset seizure. Statements showing small amounts arriving regularly, 15% of whatever job he could keep. It wasn't much at a time. $40 here, $50 there, but it would continue. For years. Justice, I had learned long ago, was rarely loud. It was consistent. Dana called one afternoon with a final update. He filed for bankruptcy, she said. Tried to discharge the judgment. And I asked, already knowing the answer. Denied. Willful injury and elder abuse are excluded. The debt follows him. I thanked her and hung up. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Elaine and I met for coffee a few weeks later. Neutral ground. A small place near the water. Nothing fancy. She looked different. Tired, yes, but clearer. Like someone who had finally stepped out of a fog she hadn't realized she was in. I keep replaying it, she said quietly. The garage. The sound you made. I heard it. I knew something was wrong. You weren't ready to face it, I said. That's not uncommon. I was afraid, she admitted, of being alone, of admitting I'd married the wrong man. That fear almost cost you more than it already did. She nodded. I won't make that mistake again. That was all I needed to hear. Marcus tried to paint himself as the victim publicly for a while. Posts, comments, stories about being betrayed by family, about cruel old men weaponizing the system. None of it mattered. Truth didn't need defending once it had been documented. Every time he crossed a line, another message, another indirect attempt at contact, there were consequences. Swift ones. Eventually, he stopped. Not because he understood, but because resistance had become exhausting. One evening, I opened Elaine's letter again, the one she'd written before she found the courage to leave him. I read it slowly, then placed it back in the drawer. Forgiveness, I had learned, was not the same thing as forgetting. And love did not require surrendering your safety, your dignity, or your future. The law had done what it was designed to do when used correctly: protect the vulnerable, punish abuse of trust, and restore balance. But the deeper lesson wasn't legal. It was human. People like Marcus relied on one belief above all others: that family silence was stronger than accountability. That age meant weakness. That intimidation replaced truth. That consequences were for other people. They were wrong. Sometimes justice wears a robe. Sometimes it arrives in paperwork. Sometimes it comes quietly, one garnishment at a time. But it comes. My arm healed stronger than before. The doctor explained how bone repairs itself, thicker at the break, reinforced where it once failed. I like that. Elaine healed too. Slower, more carefully. But honestly, as for me, I returned to my watches. Tiny gears, patient hands, precision. When something breaks, you don't ignore it. You don't pretend it didn't happen. You don't let it grind down everything around it. You remove the damaged part, and you rebuild. So when Marcus asked me that question, did you pay the mortgage? And I answered with those three words: call my lawyer. It wasn't anger speaking. It was clarity, because some lessons need to be taught methodically. And some people only learn once everything they relied on is gone. If you've ever been made to feel powerless in your own home, if someone abused your trust because they thought you wouldn't fight back, if you were told to stay quiet for the sake of peace, remember this: peace built on silence is not peace. It's permission. And permission is something you never owe to abuse. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear the next story, it's waiting for you.